Welcome to the Capital Coffee Connection podcast. And today I have a very special guest. Generally, I speak with political leaders, diverse political leaders about heart and humanity. But today we have an incredible opportunity to talk about heart and humanity with a leader, not an elected leader, but somebody that I have come to appreciate and greatly value as a leader, and someone who didn't know before October 7th that she was going to become a leader. And that is Dr. Tamar Shlezinger, and she comes from Israel. And I want to say welcome first. Thank you very much for making time and talking with me.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I want to share with everyone, we didn't know each other for a long time, but we met together about a month ago, a few weeks ago. Right. And that was the first time we met in person. But we share a very tragic and yet there's a beautiful part to its story. So I'm going to share that with everybody, but I want to say thank you first for joining me. And I know that English is not your native language, but your English is excellent. So if there's anything that you need to say in Hebrew, please go ahead. We'll translate it. But thank you for doing this. And I'm going to just start. I want to get to know who you are. And then we're going to explain how we got to know each other.
Okay.
So talk about growing up in Israel, what it was like, where you're from, and a little bit about your family and growing up.
I'm married to Shlez, my husband. I met him in the army, and that's why I call him by his nickname. And I have 4 kids. I'm going to be a grandmother soon. And I live in Rosh Pina in the north of Israel. I grew up in Savion. I have another 3 brothers and sisters. And this is where I'm coming from.
Yeah. And you've always lived in Israel?
I always lived in Israel.
And you studied, you're a doctor.
Yeah.
And you're a doctor of social work. And talk about what your life was like and how you were inspired to become that person.
I've always been the one that cared about others. When I was a child, they called me Teddy Bear I Care. And honestly, they were right, yeah. And this is the way I handle my life, always to take care of others, to see how I can help. In the army, I was like a social worker for the soldiers. And then I started to work, to learn in the university, and I really loved the teaching that I took. So I stayed in the university for 11 years and got my PhD. And now I teach in the University of Tel Hai, in the north.
You know, one of the things I think about is that all that you did before October 7th prepared you for October 7th. In an interesting way. So I'd like to share what happened for me on October 7th, because I haven't talked about it on this podcast. And then I want you to share your October 7th. And we're just going to talk about it because that's how we became connected. So for myself, I was in Israel on October 7th in Tel Aviv. I was visiting my family, my daughter in Tel Aviv. And I woke up at 6:30 to sirens and running back and forth to the hotel safe space, which was the stairwell, and with lots of other people that were visiting. And it was a holiday morning of Simchat Torah, Shabbat, Saturday morning. And as you know, because you live in the north of Israel, missiles coming in is something that people often run to safe rooms for. And it's not okay, but that is how life in Israel has been. But on October 7th, the missiles didn't stop. And what I was learning, and we were all learning, was that there was an invasion. There was a terrorist attack in Israel along the border with Gaza. And I had family that lived in Kfar Aza, which was kibbutz, a community along the border. And at 6:30 in the morning, my niece, Smadar, was murdered by terrorists, Hamas terrorists that came into their home and murdered her in front of 3 children. And then the 3 children were running outside with their father, who had come back. He was a photojournalist, and he was taking photos, which was his job to show the rest of the country. And he had done this many times. But this morning, he knew that this was different. It wasn't just missiles. It was a terror attack. And he actually took pictures of the terrorists paragliding into the kibbutz. And then he ran back and he picked up Abigail and he ran with a little boy named Michael, 9, and a little girl named Amalia, 6, and Abigail, 3 years old, in his arms, and they ran, and he was murdered by terrorists. And on October 7th, on this kibbutz, which had about 700 people living there, many children, locked in their rooms, there were hundreds of terrorists that came into this community of the thousands that came into Israel that morning. And the terrorists murdered him while he was running with Abigail in his arms. And Michael and Amalia ran home after seeing their father, and they thought their sister murdered. And they ran home and locked themselves in a closet in their safe room.
Right.
And their mother was lying there. My niece Smadar was lying there, and these 2 children alone in a closet. Now, I will stop there because that's where your story comes in. And I still get the chills when I think about it, because I called the kibbutz that morning. No one answered. My sister-in-law wasn't there to answer. My niece didn't answer. And I learned that morning from another relative in Israel that my niece Smadar had been murdered. Abigail had been murdered, the 3-year-old, and their husband, Roe. But at that moment, there was a 6 and a 9-year-old that were telling us what happened, but alone in a dark closet. And then I learned that it was you who was speaking with these 2 children. So I would love for you to tell us what your morning was like and how it started, and then how you got connected to Michael and Amalia, my niece and nephew.
Okay. For me, it started like a regular Shabbat. I milked the goat and went to the nature with my husband and my dog. But I saw in the news that something is going on in the south of Israel. And I felt immediately that this is something else. And because of my volunteering in United Hatzalah, I saw the messages, the WhatsApp, and I opened a WhatsApp group, and I thought to myself, this is religious organization that open WhatsApp group on Shabbat.
Tell a little bit about what that organization is, because you said the name, but I don't think people who are listening are going to know what that is.
Okay. United Hatzalah is an organization that take care of the injured people, and also to their souls. They take care about they have psychotrauma unit. They take care of the soul of people while a traumatic event happens. So they opened the WhatsApp group on Shabbat, and I understood that something terrible is going on.
Because religious people do not open their phones on Saturday or on Shabbat.
Right. And when I returned home, I got the first alarm of this Saturday, and in the group they asked if someone who is available to take the first call, and I said that I'm available. I knew very little, almost nothing about the need of and what is this call. I just knew there's the son. I even didn't know it's a child. I knew it's a son of someone that saw his parents murdered. And then I called, and Michael answered, and I immediately understood that this is something terrible that I never had to deal with before.
You were talking to a 9-year-old child locked in a closet.
Right. We will talk later on how this call came to me, because I think that it's a wonderful story. But at that moment, Michael told me that I asked him many questions, actually many cognitive questions, because this is the way I could help them to help themselves. But I asked him many questions to understand the situation, and he told me that he's 9 years old, and that his sister Amalia with him, and she's 6, and that they saw their parents murdered. And I kept on asking questions, to understand the situation. And then I understood that the terrorists are still around their house, so they are hiding in the closet in the safety room, because they had to deal with several danger things, because the terrorists were inside, but also the missiles attack all the time. It was hours of talking. We talked for 12 hours.
You talked to Michael and Amalia for 12 hours
Yeah.
while they were in a closet. You asked them lots of questions, and one of the things I understood is you asked them questions about the moment. You didn't ask them to relive what happened in that morning.
Right.
How did you just keep finding more to speak with these two kids about for so many hours?
I worked by, it's called the 6's model, and it has very simple principles how to work in apparently in situation like this. Also, we never used it in a situation like that before, but I knew that the first thing I knew that I have to rescue these kids, and I have to rescue their souls. So I asked many questions really to understand the situation and what we should do. We had to take decisions all the time.
Because just to be clear, you could hear terrorists, you could hear gunshots, you could hear people screaming in the background.
More than I heard, Michael told me what
He was hearing.
He was hearing. But I understand that the terrorists are there. Michael told me, I think something like 15 minutes after we started talking, he told me someone is knocking on the door. And, I had a hope that maybe it's soldiers, maybe it's neighbors, maybe
Somebody coming to rescue them.
maybe someone's coming to rescue them. But I had a very strong feeling that this is bad situation. And I told Michael, don't open the door. Be quiet. Be quiet. And he did.
And they were the terrorists.
Yeah, it was. It were the terrorists, and they kept on coming all the day to the door and inside the house. Michael told me in one moment, he told me, I see a soldier inside the house. And I told him, Michael, this is not a soldier. Because I had a feeling that I didn't know. At that time, we didn't know that the terrorists were IDF uniform.
They were wearing IDF uniforms so that people that they were killing and attacking would be confused.
Right.
And just so you know, that Abigail, when she got to some house that somebody we'll get to her story, but when she crawled out from under her father's body and she had survived, she ran to a neighbor. No one answered because they were locked in their safe room.
Mm-hmm.
Then she went to another neighbor. And by a miracle, this man, Avichai Brodich, was going out. He was the father of 3 children. He was leaving his wife and 3 kids to go and protect the community. And by miracle, he opened the door at that time. And there was little Abigail, 3 years old, covered in her father's blood. And the first thing she did was run. Because when he opened the door, he also was wearing an IDF fatigue uniform to go protect the kibbutz. He did get her back, and she knew who he was by his voice. But when she saw that uniform, she ran. Yeah. So I understand that you had to make a quick judgment, and you couldn't see anything. You had to use your intuition.
Right. I used my intuition and Michael's eyes and ears. But you asked before about the question that I asked, and about being in the moment. So I asked the children by this model, by the 6's model, cognitive questions, because I knew that in traumatic events, people feel overwhelming. And if you ask them cognitive questions, then it helped them
be in the moment, be calmer.
Be calmer, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a couple of questions, like what were the questions you asked them? Just if people are wondering, what did she do?
Many questions. I asked them about the situation, if they have more brothers and sisters. And then I heard about Abigail. I asked them about the phone, if they have 1 phone or 2 phones, about the battery, where the charger, if they have water, what kind of closet is it? If they have plays, are they hurt? Many, 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 many questions, because I had to know everything in order to save their lives, but also I knew that it will help them to manage with this situation and be in the moment.
Yeah, and you think about like 2 little kids after everything they experienced, and their mother's body is laying there.
Right.
And they are alone, and you are their connection. You are their calm connection. And what kind of things did they ask you?
The first C of the model is a communication, commitment. So I wanted them to know me, to trust me. And we had to build this connection because I'm a stranger. They don't know me. So I told them, who am I? And later on, I send them my selfie and also ask them to send me their selfie. It helped me to understand their situation. But also it helped them to know me, to make this commitment.
Connect you.
Yeah, connection, right.
I also know there were points where you said to them, I'm here even if you don't want to talk.
Right.
And were there points where the kids slept, or where they were just quiet, or you just stayed on the phone and you just kept checking in with them?
You know, that feeling when you talk with someone on the phone and he's not answering you, and then you say, hello?
Yeah.
So we had moments of quiet, but then Michael or Amalia said, hello? And I told them, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. We're together. And so we had little moments of quiet, but most of the time we talked. We were quiet when the terrorists came. And then I told the children not to talk at all, and I whisper. I asked them at the beginning of this very very long talk to put the phones on silence, and not to speak on speaker, just on the ear, because I didn't want the terrorists to hear this conversation. So I talk to them and I whisper, "You're not alone. I'm with you. Someone will come to rescue you." And we talked all the time. But I told them that we don't have to speak all the time. It's okay if they want to be quiet.
And there was a point where they were wondering what was going to happen to them. And you were that person that gave them the assurance.
Yeah.
That they would be loved.
Yeah. I promised them that everyone will fight for the opportunity to raise them and to give them loving family.
And they are beautiful children.
They're beautiful children.
And they are loved.
Yeah.
And you knew they would be loved.
I knew.
But I can only imagine what it would be like to be a child in that moment and to have your whole world shattered.
Right.
But to have this woman who they have a selfie of, just saying you're going to be loved. And how powerful that is. And you did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And talk about the batteries, because, we all know batteries of cell phones run out. And you had to make and I've heard this story, but I don't think you've said it in English, but you had to make a really hard decision, which was making sure you stayed connected, but knowing that they have to go and get a charger.
The children had 2 phones, so we tried to manage with this both phone, but it wasn't enough. And Michael, he's a hero, and he had to do that. He had to go to the kitchen, to leave the closet, to see his dead mother lying on the floor, and he had to go to the kitchen and bring the charger, and then go out from the closet and charge one phone and then the other phone. And also he brought water, I think twice or three times. I don't remember.
And you had to so you imagine that you had to take a chance and you had to trust a 9-year-old's judgment under everything when it was okay to go out, but that he knew when he came back you'd be there.
Yeah.
And that he was leaving Amalia alone when he did that.
Yeah. And there's thing that didn't happen. All the time when we decided that Michael will bring something to eat, something happened. And then he didn't bring food. So we had to take decisions all the time. And what I try to do is to help them to remain kids. That I will take the decisions instead of them, with the help of Michael, because he was my eyes and ears.
And he's a very smart little boy. He's a very, very smart, wise child.
Right.
And did they end up getting food and water at any point?
Michael bought
Water. Yeah.
water.
That's it. Water only.
Yeah.
You think about, like,
No, for me, a Jewish mother, it's terrible.
yeah.
I couldn't eat also during the day.
I was going to ask how you took care of yourself.
No, I couldn't eat because how can I eat if they're not eating? No, I couldn't eat.
And you know, what I like to also tell people who are listening is that my other niece and her husband and their 3 kids were across this community, but they couldn't go because their lives would have been taken. And they were sitting there also in silence, also hiding with a woman, a young mother, and her infant, 1-month-old infant without any diapers and any food. They were there for over 28 hours. But they knew what was going on with Michael and Amalia, and they could not go.
Right.
And so, you know, what people sometimes don't understand is that you just kept hoping and thinking somebody was going to come and save these kids.
Right.
And no one came for hours, until 14 hours they were there alone. And I only say it because, like, you and I are familiar with the story, but I don't know that everyone listening is going to understand that at 6:30 in the morning when this happened, and they found themselves back locked in at, let's say, 7:30, nobody came to get them until 10 p.m. that night. And it was you. They had some relatives trying to reach them, but it was you who centered them and gave them the warmth and the hug and the love.
Yeah.
Looking back, and this is just an interesting, what did this experience teach you you're a doctor and you studied and you spent 11 years and this is what you do and you teach, but what did it teach you? Because you and I have talked about universal women and this concept that what you were trained and what you did, but then what do you look back and think about yourself from this experience? It's not about you, I understand. But at the end, what you did is Herculean. You save these children, and then you continue life. And you're going to be a rabbi, and your life continues.
I knew it before, but then I couldn't not knowing that the power of the universal motherhood, it's the spirit that take care of children when their parents can't take care of them. And I felt it with Michael and Amalia. I had this strong feeling that this was the spirit that sent me to be with them during the day. And I felt that there was a whole net of wonderful people who help these children during the day. It began with the children that Michael called his grandfather and talked with him, and Eli's aunt called her Aunt Linda in Australia, who called her friend Peter Cash in United States, but he was in Dubai at the right time. And he called us in Jerusalem, and she called United at Salah. And from United at Salah, they delivered the message, and I was the one that said unavailable.
So basically, from the moment Michael was calling family for help, his aunt called an aunt in Australia. The aunt in Australia called a business relationship who happened to be an American, but he was in Dubai. And then Dubai called Israel. And then Israel connected to your organization and to you. And that is how you got to Michael and Amalia. It's a stunning connection, but there is something we say, Bashert, it was meant to be that it would be you in that moment. You know, one of the things I thought about when I was advocating for Abigail was this concept of her parents weren't there. Michael and Amalia's parents weren't there. You became their aunt You became their relative. You became that person. And what I've asked in so many instances when I've met with different leaders and different people, especially when early on when Abigail was a hostage, when we learned that she had survived, was asking people to be her aunt. I was talking to senators, some of the most powerful people in the world, and I said, be her aunt, be her uncle. Exactly. She doesn't have those.
Be the person. When there's no person, be that person. If there's no mother, be that mother.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the most important thing that I learned from this day. And it changed me. It changed me as a mother, as a responder in United States. I'm a medic also.
So do you think that you always were there empathetically, but this changed to make you more using the maternal energy that you have brought to your work and to your, and I say this, saving souls of these children.
Right.
Because, we talked about this, which is these children and thousands of children in Israel, but these children who are my niece and nephew and people now that I believe are your niece and nephew, great niece and nephew, they have trauma that they will live with for the rest of their lives. But what we try to do is give them the ability to have as close to what we would hope is a normal life. But they will always have this experience.
Right.
But you got them through it. And I look at it and I think that gives them the strength to now have the ability to go out and do what children need to do. Play soccer, play with friends, go to school. And I think about a lot of the kids in Israel, and I think about the children in Gaza. And the thought, and it goes back to where I'm going to go back to where, like, what would be our world if there were more women who were using this universal motherhood in order to look out for children, all these children on both sides, because all these children are innocent, and that there was thought in making decisions about how the future looks that was based on what you're educated, you were teaching, but it wasn't until this moment that you understood what you could give to these children. Is there something that you could tell other, and I'd say women, in this moment? Because I travel and women and men, but mainly women will say, I can't believe what you're doing. And I think to myself, like, if this was your loved one or this was some child in need, I believe then you would do the same. And do people look at you and say, oh my gosh, you did this, and you think to yourself, like, of course.
Many people asked me what prepared me to do that, and many people said they won't be able to do that. And I believe that this loving and caring won't allow anyone to not do that thing. You know, I think about their uncles that couldn't help them during the day. And I passed messages from Zoli and Liron, the uncle and the aunt who live in Kfar Aza and couldn't help these children. And I told Michael and Amalia, Zoli is saying that there's smoke in all over the kibbutz.
Because at one point, Michael smelled smoke. Yeah, you were worried that they were going to have a fire in their home.
Yeah, and I all the time, not all the time, but I made a connection between them. And I told Michael and Amalia, Zoli senses love and he's caring about you. He's worrying. You're not alone. So I think that everyone could do that. But you have to have tools and you have to practice while routine time, because otherwise you could be overflow and emotional. And I work all the time before the October 7th and with many tools for myself. But I do it for myself, but it helps other, also.
Yeah. What was the last part of the day when you knew that there was somebody coming to save Michael and Amalia? How did that end, and how did you also know that it was safe for them to open up, because you had kept them very guarded and very protected?
Right.
But what gave you the understanding, because it was a lot of hours before anyone came to rescue them?
Right. Around 8 in the evening, 8 p.m. Yeah. I talked with Savta Shlomit, Grandma Shlomit.
Right. And so Grandma Shlomi, just to be clear, is my sister-in-law, and she was on a trip with her community in Bulgaria.
Right.
And for people to hear this, she found out that her daughter had been murdered and that these kids were in a closet from these two children. And she was so far away and she could do nothing. But she could call you.
We talked.
And you could also be there for her.
Yeah.
Is what I want people to know. Like, you were there for this grandmother, this mother who was having the worst day of her life and could do nothing to help.
So we talked during the day, and we had terrible connection with the phone with problems. So I asked Shlomit if she knows the code of the phone of her daughter, because otherwise we couldn't use WhatsApp. And she told me that she doesn't know because Madar works in a very, very secret work. And then I started to ask questions about the work, and I understood where she worked. And I called my friend Noah, that has connection at the Shin Bet, right? Well, and she called her friend. This is part of the net that rescued the children. And she called her friend that works over there, and he uh, talked to the right person. And I think 2 minutes later, I got a call from the Shin Bet and asked where the children live and if I can draw a map. And I couldn't because I don't know where the children live. I don't know these children. And asked Michael, and he's small child. He didn't know how to do it. But so a friend of Shlomi did it. And then, and at the same time, during all the day, the uncle Amit from the north of Israel, he also made connection with the soldiers. And somehow everything just went well. And
Because it was a rescue mission. At that moment, there was still fighting going on.
yeah, it was fighting. The terrorists were all around. But somehow I knew when Michael told me there's knocking on the door, someone calling our name, and I knew that this is soldiers. And I told him, Michael, go out. This is mother's friend. Go out, go out. And I heard the soldier say, Amalia. And then I knew that they are at the right place.
They were safe at that moment.
Yeah, they were.
Now you could finally breathe.
Then I couldn't breathe. I cried for the first time during the day. I cried. And then I thought, I can't cry because I have to call Savta Shlomi, to Grandma Shlomi. And I don't want her to think that something terrible happened. So I collect myself and I called Shlomi and I told her, I'm safe. And now look at my skin.
I still get the chills.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say for people listening, Shin Bet is like an FBI, and that is who was able to come and help to rescue them.
Yeah.
And I also, you talk about the map of this kibbutz and where these homes were located.
Just a second, I want to say that the one that came, the soldiers that came,
They were reservists. They were people that were no longer in the army, but showed up to help protect this kibbutz when they heard what was this kibbutz and many communities on their own. They showed up to help.
yeah, exactly, just came to fight and rescue, and marvelous people, and they just came and rescued the children, and then the I don't know exactly how it happened, but everything just grew together. I got a call from the Shin Bet, and they asked me where should we take the children, and I told them, I don't know. And Shlomi told me we take them to Limor, their son, their uncle, and eventually they went to a doctor in a place called Shuva. And I talked to this doctor, and he told me that during the day he met other people. They were traumatized, and those two children was functional. It was terrible day, but they were functional. And I think that
I know it's because of you.
it's because of the connection that
You were able to create.
the connection and the model that I use. I knew how to help them to help themselves.
Their home was right at the corner, and their nearest, when you looked out their door, was Gaza City in the distance. And these are people that were just peaceful. They wanted just to do what we all want to do, is raise our kids and be quiet and live a quiet life. And when you talk about like where they were located, their next door neighbors were the Gazans. And Michael and Amalia, all they wanted to do was go out and play that day. So I just want people to understand that when you ask for about a map, they just were in a little neighborhood. All they wanted to do was, and play. First, I want to say thank you. I want to give you a hug, just a hug of love and really appreciation. And thank you because you saved their souls. You gave them the ability to come out of this with the basic functioning skills to live. And I don't know in life, but to me, that is one of the greatest gifts anybody could ever give. And you gave that to these two children, and you gave them that which is beyond. And so I, as a relative and as their great aunt and knowing this family for so many years and being with them, I know that having Michael and Amalia being able to go to school and now to have what we hope will be healthy lives, and that Abigail came back after 51 days in Gaza, and that's another story, but that these three children, because I want people, when they understand that these three children every day are going through life without their mom and their dad, but now with their aunt and uncle who are together and their cousins. And so I just say that because I think it's so important for people to end up going, wait a minute, what happened?
Right.
And they are going to be able to move forward. And my niece, Liron and Zoli, are angels. They're the most amazing people. And Safta Shlomit and grandfather Eitan.
And also Coleman and Liz.
Yes, the whole family and cousins and Uncle Dory and Aunt Karen. I think everybody.
Yeah.
But at the end, what brought these two children to get to be in this moment was what you gave them. So thank you.
I feel that it wasn't me. It was through me. Do you understand?
Yeah, but you did it. And I think the concept also of universal motherhood is something I'm going to keep thinking about, and I hope we'll keep talking about it. And just thank you. Hi, it's Liz. Please join me for coffee to talk about heart and humanity with our elected leaders. Remember to hit subscribe to get an alert when a new episode is live and for exclusive content. Ciao!